Welcome to Country Stitchers.
Oh my.
This is take 2. We started with the video and I forgot to set the do not disturb function. So we were stopped in our Olga stocking tracks.
Yes, yes.
So
Yes.
we'll take up where we left off.
Yes. Sorry about that. We do not use editing software, so that's that. I was showing Olga stocking and just saying that I'm excited to start that in the fall. So I will get everything else I need when I'm at the store. And I also want to start the Hello Fall Plum Street sampler. Another Plum Street sampler.
Where's that going?
This one?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, I'm going to do it as a pillow.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to, I decided the fabric I'm going to use is going to be 14 count Ren. It's Ada. Very pretty, a little bit mottled. But I'm going to use that, and then I am picking different colors. So it will look a little different, obviously, than what's pictured on the front. So I want to start that one. And then my next one is Carriage House Samplings, and it's Fall's Gift. I love that one. That looks so primitive.
And did you just get all 3 of these?
No.
Oh, okay. Because
No.
I thought you had... It was just Olga's you didn't have, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's called Fall's Gift. They stitched this in black. I'm going to stitch it in a dark, it's like a dark brown. It's actually called Antique Almond, but I think it's going to be really pretty and better in my house on this
That's actually
dark
the
brown
color
fabric.
of my Just Nan mice.
Yeah?
But you would not know it to look at that.
Your mice?
My
Are they
mice
dark?
are either stitched on
Oh, wow.
antique brown or antique
Wow.
almond or gingerbread are the 2 colors.
Oh, wow.
And it looks so much darker in that piece.
Yeah.
So it must be
Yeah.
a completely different dye lot.
Yeah, wow. So anyway, I have to finish getting, it does call for needlepoint silk, but it also gives you the DMC conversion. So I am going to do it in the DMC conversion. But I might pick a few, when we're down at the store, I might pick out certain ones that I'm going to use a variegated thread on, like the backgrounds, you know, like the larger pumpkins. I think I might pick something that is a variegated color for those, and then just use DMC for the rest of it. I think that's what I'll do. So that's my fall plans.
All right. I
Yep.
think I brought my fall mandala last time we videoed.
Yeah.
So I think at this point we'll move on to our Did You Know? And one of the questions that we had, or comments if you will, was by Bits of Stitching, and she wanted to know, she's just making the transition from Ada to linen and is having trouble with positioning her pattern, starting her new project on her fabric, and there's our subscriber tribute.
Yes. So real quick, we'll take a break from Did You Know, since we didn't get into it.
That's right.
That's good. That's a good thing. And we can show you our lucky subscriber tribute winner and what she's getting. Oh, we're getting something so special from Liz. So, Terry Holiday. That's who we're looking for. You
So
are
when
going...
you see this, Terry, you need to email us or touch base with us on our Instagram.
Yes, so Miss Liz made you an awesome fall fob, a scarecrow. Look how beautiful. He's so, so cool. Since we hit the 3,000 mark, I think Liz actually committed to every time we hit 1,000, she's going to give away a special fob.
I'll do a fob, yep.
He is so cool. And you're also going to get one of these containers that we had discussed a few videos back, right?
Yep.
That we actually have in our stitching kits to hold different items.
Yeah, this one has, I think, 4 compartments. This was shown to me by one of our guild members at a class I took, and she was excited to show me, and before we got to our video, I had already ordered them. So they're divided into these 4 open individually, and then this one opens by itself. And they're just great for needles, needle threaders, and you could even put a needle minder in this section.
Yeah.
So you've got, Robin, I believe, has each size of her needles in here and uses it just for all of her needles.
Okay.
Which I thought was really
Yeah,
sweet
very
too.
cool.
So you'll receive a gadget,
Yeah.
2 gadgets.
So thank you very much for being a subscriber. And Terry, if you can get a hold of us, like Liz said, we'll get your goodies out to you.
Yes,
thank
we will.
you.
And now back to bits of stitching. We had the question about how to start on a piece of linen as opposed to Ada. With the Ada, they can see where the divisions are and the center, and they know how to count their pattern. It is more difficult with linen because you have usually 2 threads to each stitch if you're stitching over 2, and it can look very, very daunting. There's 2 ways to do that, and I'll mention those first to answer your question, and then we'll get into the details about the fabric. But you either can start in the center simply by folding your fabric side to side, end to end, and coming up with the seam both directions, horizontal and vertical, and that center point then becomes the center point on your pattern. And as long as you've counted your fabric and found the size piece and added your margins, then when you get to the center and you start there, it's going to fit. No problem.
And most patterns now are marked with, there's an arrow at the top and an arrow at the side. And, you know, you bring those 2 into meet, and that shows you the exact center of your pattern.
Right. And then the other way to do it is by using a gauge and just coming in from the side of your pattern. If you know you've allowed a 2-inch margin, then come in 2 inches and down 2 inches, and that will be your upper left stitch. Well, I should say your upper left corner of the number of stitches that you're going to be using. The counting comes if your pattern doesn't start right in that upper left corner, then you would have to count over and down to wherever that first stitch would be, or wherever it is you want to start. They sell gauges that allow you to measure in 2 or 3 inches to start. Somebody told me that instead of using a gauge like this, a Post-it note.
Oh.
2 by 2, 3 by 3 works perfect,
There you
and
go.
they're easy to come by.
Yeah.
So you can
Clever.
find your margin. Deb and I usually put a 2-inch margin on our pieces. We don't usually buy a 3-inch margin. So we just save 1 square inch all the way around whatever size fabric we're buying by doing it that way. And it's just a little less to work with.
But you do have to make sure, though, if you are doing a smaller margin, that your fabric is cut well.
Yes.
That's important.
If the person
So-
cutting your fabric makes a mistake and angles that fabric, even if they start right and they're going the wrong direction, you're going to lose that margin at the bottom.
So if it makes you nervous, then I would just go ahead and add on another inch.
Yeah.
But I usually start in the middle, and you always, or at least you used to, start in the corner.
Yeah. Now I've started moving around depending on what the pattern is.
Yeah.
And because now I tend to put it on a frame. Where I used to start in the corner was when I was stitching in hand, and I always would just start in that upper left corner, because then I'm not holding on to what I've already stitched. I'm rolling it as I go. But everybody does it differently. So hopefully that'll help you find the starting point. Once you find the center, or once you find that upper left corner, then you can count from there, and you just count 2 threads for every stitch if you're stitching over 2. The other question is, what point do you start? There is a vertical and a horizontal thread, and you want to bring your needle up where your vertical and horizontal thread cross. So you'll bring it up to the bottom left of the horizontal thread, just below the vertical thread. That's in a magazine. Most magazines have that noted if they're giving you the basics of stitching. You can look it up online, and it just allows your thread to lock when you make your first stitch, and then it doesn't slide behind the linen threads as you're stitching. But when you're stitching over 2, that's not really a big concern. It usually happens more as a concern when you're stitching over 1 thread. In which case, it works differently. But in the Did You Know, we have 3 references today we're using because, sorry about that, I dropped some things on my feet. We're going to look at what is the difference. You hear all kinds of references to Aida, even weave, linen. Then you hear Belfast, Cashel, Edinburgh, Newcastle, Monaco, Congress, Joblin, Lugana. It can get very confusing if you're new to linen or you're new to stitching on anything but Aida. What do those things mean? And then there's the issue of, well, what do you choose? What do those things mean is pretty simple. It's just the naming convention. Manufacturers found different ways to name their fabrics. So one manufacturer calls all of their 32 count fabric Belfast, all of their 28 count fabric Cashel. Those things are just naming conventions. And if you want a reference to that, I'm going to put a link in it. Needle in a Haystack is a local needlework store that has a tremendous reference that gives you all of the information in a PDF file that you can print out and stick in a notebook or a page sleeve, and it's just an awesome reference for anything that you're looking up. Not only does it give you the information about the naming convention, but it also tells you the fabric name, the type of fabric, whether it's even weave or whether it's linen or Aida. There are a couple things that people use the terminology and it means 2 different things, and we're going to talk about that today too, because if you don't know exactly what the meaning is that you're having the discussion, you're going to get lost. So that reference is a great one. Just as an example, when you're looking at that fabric called Fireside that you had for your autumn piece, that's the name given to it by Witchelt, the manufacturer. Well, they sell it. I don't know that they actually manufacture it. That's another article that's going to go through the different manufacturers. But in that, it is actually an acrylic. It's a polyacrylic fabric. So when you feel it, it feels very smooth, very soft, has a completely different feel. So when Deb and I were talking earlier, everything boils down to feel and look. And when you're getting ready to start something, if you know what you're going to use it for, you'll have an idea if it's a pillow, what you want it to feel like. If it's something that you're going to frame, do you want it to look older? You might want a linen that has those slubs in it that makes it look more vintage. So well, let's start with Aida. We'll start where it started back in the day. And we learned something about that. Aida, prior to the Verdi opera, was called Java cloth.
I like that.
Yeah. And then the opera came out, and one of the names in the opera was Aida. The opera became so popular that the manufacturers of Java cloth decided to rename their cloth Aida, if you pronounce it that way, or Aida, which is the other way it's pronounced, hoping that it would become popular and be able to work off of the popularity of the opera.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
That goes back quite a ways. And from then, Aida was used by needleworkers. It's 100% cotton, and there's also a linen Aida that is made from flax. So what you buy in the store is the cotton version of the Aida. If you buy it from Charles Craft and it's in a roll, that sort of thing, or packaged and folded. Then from that point they started making fabric from flax. That's extremely laborious and time consuming and very involved, and makes it a much more expensive cloth to use. So then at that point, after they developed those two fabrics, my understanding is then they started blending the fabrics. They added synthetic fabrics to the linen. They came up with different feels, different counts. So Zweigart has, oh gosh, probably close to 60 different types of fabrics and names for their fabrics, which all have to do with the count and the content. So again, the look and the feel of the fabric. As an example, let's look at Jaslyn. That's a fabric that's 28 count. It's made of 52% cotton and 48% rayon. Another one they put out is called Jubilee. Again, 28 count, but it's 100% cotton. So, what do you want your fabric to feel like? What are you going to use it for? All of it influences what type of fabric you're going to pick out when you go looking for it. Those of us who stitch just because we like the pattern and it's a neat sampler and we're going to hang it on our wall, and we started out, we probably all went for the Ada. As you progressed, you went to the higher count, smaller gauge Ada, and it had a little different look to it. Then if you want to progress to a linen, the same thing is true. You might start with the basic 28 count, which looks like a 14 count Ada in size, and then you progress up to a 32 or a 36. Now you're at an 18 or a 16 count version of an Ada cloth. So there were some terms in the one article that are, if nothing else, fun to say. But they talk about a couple of terms. If you're looking and somebody says, how many holes per inch do you want? That's what we refer to as the count, threads per inch. The true definition of even weave is a fabric that has the same number of threads vertically and horizontally per inch. Now that messes with your head.
Yeah.
Because most of us refer to even weave as something where the thread size and thickness is consistent in the threads that are on the warp and the weft. So there's sort of a double meaning there, because technically based on that definition of even weave, linen is an even weave.
Everything is even weave.
Everything that we stitch on traditionally. So the count, even though threads per inch and holes per inch are a reference, holes per inch is something that I've heard used more frequently with a needlepoint canvas, whereas threads per inch is usually used in a linen or an even weave. There, I'm going to use that word again. So then the warp and weft are the terms for the threads that run lengthwise is the warp. Horizontally would be the weft. And then slub is the term given to the blemishes on the linen threads. They're the things that make you kind of grumble when you're stitching and all of a sudden you have a really big blotch of flax that didn't weave very well into the thread, and so it distorts your stitch a little bit. That's a slub. It does give a natural look to the fabric.
Yeah, it does.
So if you're doing something that's a reproductive sampler or something that's more vintage,
yeah, it looks
primitive,
more primitive.
people tend to go towards that kind of a linen. And then you'll have fabrics like a Lugana, which by definition,
And I can hold some up and show you. We have some samples here.
Yep.
Let me know what you'd like.
The Lugana in Zweigart's manufacturing is a 20, 25, or 28 count, and it is a mix of cotton and rayon. 52% cotton, 48% rayon. And it gives you a very finished, even look to your fabric.
Yeah.
Those are two colors right there. I think those are 25 count, maybe.
This one's 25 count,
Okay.
yeah. We really like, I love stitching on Lugana.
Yep. And if you ever buy Lugana or linen that has a metallic thread woven in it, it gives it that iridescent sort of, a lot of people use it for holiday ornaments, things like that. The term for that is lurex, L-U-R-E-X. That was completely new to me. I had never heard of that. When you're choosing your fabric, the things to keep in mind, a beginner is probably going to be more well suited to an Aida or even a large count Aida, well, small count large weave would be like a Clostern fabric, which is what Deb's holding up right now.
This is the Clostern and this is the Aida.
And it just has a much bigger hole, the Clostern does. Actually, that is made out of 60% rayon and 40% cotton, the Clostern is. That makes a very nice pillow, I think.
Yeah.
I have done a couple of pillows on that.
In fact, that Christmas one that I just started is on Clostern. Not this color. I love this color.
This particular really color that she was showing you, and actually the thread's still attached because I had started this pattern. This is a cricket, cross-eyed cricket pattern. It's a tree, a Christmas tree, and when you're done, then you attach either ceramic buttons or metallic buttons, and you decorate the tree. I did one of those for each of my siblings for Christmas one year as a Christmas present, and then framed it. And it's a lot of fun. That uses more thread because you want the coverage. I believe I used 6 strands on that particular one. Yep. And that gave it a nice full tree look. I started trying it with 3 and then I incremented it. I think they recommended 4 on the pattern. I liked 6, so I just used 6. Okay. One of the other things to consider with your fabric and the look is the color. And of course we've talked before about the over-dyed fabric and the colored fabric. Aida now has both. Yeah. You can do tremendous things with the color range in Aida. One of the even weaves you hear about, Monaco, it has a 28 count and it is generally used, it's a cotton, and it has, if you look in online, Hirschner's, some of those places sell a variety of colors. I think I found 4 colors, from a light blue to a neutral, a white, and a cream. And that doesn't mean there aren't more. That's just what I referenced when I was looking it up. That is a nice fabric because the warp and weft are the same size, like a Lugana, so it makes it nice to stitch on. Yeah. And it is a little stiffer, I think.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like that one. Yeah. So it would be a nice fabric to start on too, if you were making the transition from Aida to something different in the even weave section. Yeah. When you're doing it, and I'm sorry I jumped thoughts there for a minute, but color is the other thing to consider. That's where I was going with the comment about the Monaco. When Deb picks out her threads, then she goes and picks out her fabric. Sometimes I'll see her standing in front of the fabric wall and she'll have a handful of threads and she'll just be standing there and looking at the fabric wall, and I'm just watching and she's just looking all over, like, and I'll go out, I'll go look at patterns, I'll come back and I'll holler her name, and she's just standing there looking at the fabric wall. But that's how she chooses her fabric and her colors for her threads, and it's just incredible how many colors there are. Yes. In the Belfast and the Cashel, 28, 32 count range. Yeah. And I'm sure there's more than what are at our favorite store to go shop at, but there are a lot of them. And then the difference too, when you're looking at the color, is what do you want the finished piece to look like? It's part of your design.
How much of it are you going to see? Yep.
How much remains? Is the design in the center more of a full coverage? Or are you just going to see it on the outside? But then does the modeling lend itself more to a primitive look, to a vintage look, that sort of thing. One of the things that I showed you on the last video we did was the Mandala by Ink Circles. Thank you. And it has some, I bought some really pretty silks to do that with, and I was going to do it on that guided fabric that I showed you during the video that I said I was getting anxious to try and see how the guide worked. And when I set it aside and we were done with the video, I said to Deb, I said, do you think you would do that and bring the frame right up to the sides, or do you think you would change the fabric? And she said, I would not do it on that white fabric. I would do it on something colored, and I would take it back from the edges. Yeah. So I'm going to be looking for a fabric while we're down there.
Ooh, I can look.
I'll just park her in front of the wall. And dip in front of the wall. Take your position.
She puts me there when we arrive, and she picks me up when we leave.
And so that is one thing, though, that that came to mind when we were looking at doing this topic today, because it makes a tremendous difference in your finished piece.
Yes. And just like how we see with the round robin going on, it can give the same, you can have almost the same pattern. I know everybody's motifs are different, but you have, every single one is 100% completely different. Yep. Because people have chosen their own fabrics, their own threads. And that's a really cool thing. Yep. Liz and I can stitch the exact same pattern, but if she chose a different fabric than I chose, it'll have a completely different look. Yep. So like Liz said, it just depends. Where are you going to use it? What do you want it for? You know. Yep.
And sometimes after Deb and I met, she started doing more of a variety of pieces, and I was looking at her different color choices and her fabric choices, and so I started trying to build my stash with some of the fabric and colors that you were finding. Then I'd get ready to sit down with my threads and my pattern, and I'd go to look at it, and I'd think, oh, I really like that one with this, and I like that one with this, and I couldn't decide. And I'd go to Deb and I'd show it to her, and nope, she immediately it didn't take her long to push one of them out of the way. And she has a color sense that I don't have. And then if I stitch it on the fabric that it's called for, and I keep the threads the same, and she'll change it out and do it for her fabric for her house, when we're done with the same piece and we look at them, then we both are just struck by the fact how different they look, but yet, like Deb will say, ooh, I really do like the way that shows up on that fabric. And I'll look at hers and I'll say, but I like the fabric color you chose because it blends with all those other things. So it's a matter of taste too. There's no book to go by. Yes. And so if you're like me and you don't have the experience in decorating or coloring, combining, and get that word out, and you have somebody like Deb around, knock on the door, because I don't buy fabric anywhere, do I, until I talk to Deb, because I want her to see it. Now, I've seen some really pretty fabric, and I will buy the fabric because I like it, but when it comes time to decide what to put on it, that's not my strong point, is it? She's not going to say no, but she's thinking, no, you're right, you're not, that's not it. So, I guess in closing, the thing to take away from this discussion on fabric is don't be afraid to get one of those reference sheets. Yeah. And then you'll be able to know what the type of fabric you're working is, what the composition of the fabric is, and then
what count it comes in.
Yes, what it's available in. There are people who fall in love with a particular type of fabric. It has a wide range of counts, and they come up with 2 or 3 colors they absolutely love, and that is what they use. Yeah. They found a dark, a light, and a neutral in that particular fabric, and that's what they go with. Yep. And it makes things a lot simpler. I look at some of the things in my stash now, and I think, why did I buy them? Oh, I do. I'll be standing in front of a remnant section, and I'll think, oh, that's a pretty color. It's a tiny piece. I could do an ornament on it. I get home, and that green does not go with any color green in any ornament I had thought I was going to be stitching on it. So So I don't venture too far anymore without without my sidekick.
We had a couple more pieces of fabric. Would you like me to hold these up?
Sure.
Show. This is a linen that Liz has.
That one, I believe, is the Country Mocha.
Yeah, that's so pretty.
Yep.
Or light mocha.
That was a 32. Yeah, light.
Light mocha. And this one?
That one is, I think, Floba. Yep.
This is pretty. I like this one.
And it's, when you look at it, it's very much an even weave in the sense that the threads are the same size. But like Deb said, if you look hard enough, you will see a slub every now and then in it.
Yeah.
Still gives you that kind of country look.
All right. And then we have a cashel, which is a linen. Oopsie. Break your bags. Oops. And I'll drop everything else. That's a pretty blue.
Yeah.
So that's a cashel.
What was the name of that color? Dwarf or something?
Yeah, dwarf.
Dwarf.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. We should have named it Smurf.
I liked that blue.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I do believe when I bought it. Now I'm struggling. I can't remember if I pulled that out of the remnant bin and thought I liked it and I didn't have any blues, or if I had something in mind for it.
It came out of that basket back there.
Yeah, that's just the ones I need to put
away.
away.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, there's no special meaning to where it came from. So anyway.
It's a surprise.
Yes. So that's fabrics, choices, why you choose it, how you choose it, and make sure to put that link to Needle and a Haystack's reference.
Yep. All right.
And now we're going to progress into Gadget Corner.
Yes.
We actually need like a lift to get these caddies up here.
Since we're getting ready to go next week on our retreat, we wanted to show you what we take along with us, our caddies that we take, and what we put in our caddies.
Yes. And these caddies, we'll put a link down in the description box, but these are from a company called Handy Caddy. Pretty handy.
Pretty handy.
And they're...
Go ahead, you show yours first.
Oh, okay. I was just going to show them that they're see-through.
Yeah.
And they're pocketed on both sides. There's 2 sizes of these.
I think, at least.
The smaller one, which is what we have, and then there's a larger one that goes out one more pocket, I think.
Yeah. It does fold up if you're not using it completely flat.
Yep.
But it has pockets on both sides. And then the entire inside is one great big pocket.
This is actually a bag that clips down over this metal frame and sits down inside.
Yeah.
This is the...
It does have a strap also. Liz has her strap on hers. I have a strap. I just took it off because this, if I'm not taking it with us to a class or something, this stays out all the time on my workbench area in the middle of my craft room. So if I need to grab something out of it, I can. It's always within arm's reach.
And prior to these handy caddies, Deb and I were going away, and I put together a smaller version when we were starting off using just these little totes. These are available in Joann's. I think I got mine, our initial ones, online. No, one of them came from Sally. That's right. Sarah, sorry, at Salty Yarn. She had one. And then I found one similar on Joann's website.
Yeah, and there's lots of different sizes, styles, colors of these.
Yep.
I love this tote that we use because it's see-through also. And it holds so much.
These even have a little drawer that pull out in the bottom.
Yeah.
So depending on what you can carry. Honestly, if I had to do this all by myself and Deb wasn't my stitching buddy when we go away, I would probably use this for just the bare necessities, because with my disability it would be very hard for me to cart this back and forth, because these get heavy when you get them filled up like we have them filled up.
So, you want to start with some of the things we have in there?
Yeah. Why don't you name a few? And
because I know our one side is pretty much the same. This side over here.
The scissor side?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we do have regular large scissors that are, not fabric scissors basically. I mean,
utility scissors.
Yeah. Cut whatever with. And then of course, you have your pens. in here, and we have more on the other side, and we both have the same stitch ripper.
Yeah, these I got after watching
that?
Vanna's tutorial, and she referenced this little stick. They call it a seam fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is awesome because this pulls the threads out after you
this rubber
cut them.
Yeah.
You can just run along and it just gathers them all up.
Yeah.
It is really delightful.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Over here I have a tape measure and some wax here that I can slide my thread through. I don't know if we ever showed that holder that you gave me.
The thread conditioner?
Yeah.
I think I showed it when I showed my thread conditioners.
So because it has all the slots in it, you just slide your thread right through it, which is nice.
Yeah.
And then I have my, it's part of this. I think you showed it at one time. It comes in 3 parts, and you can attach your chart to it, and then this can clamp onto if you have a stand nearby or something. So I have that in that pocket. Oh, looky there. I have my name tag that Liz made me. I always keep it on here. And then on your other side.
Yep. Rotating.
You have some different things that I don't have, but what? Yeah, do you have anything
back
different over
up
here?
I have a bone presser.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit different than my my sticks or my purple thing, which Deb has too.
Yeah.
But I also have on this side with my scissors, I keep my X-Acto knife, and I have a needle grabber magnet. I have used this more times than I can count.
Yeah, she has.
We're at a table and I drop something and
Yeah.
I can't physically get down to get it.
Yeah.
I just open this up and grab it.
Yeah.
And that is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the other things I have on that side. Oh, I do also keep my my glasses lens cleaners. I carry some of these just so that when I'm using my clip-ons and my glasses, I can see what I'm looking at.
So then on this side, I have nail file, of course, and then my purple thing, and some lip gloss, some chapstick, and I have my my little bug, that light up needle threader, you know, for when I'm licking my thread at night, so
so I can see the thread to lick it. That's what she uses hers for.
And of course a notepad for when you want to take notes in class, or ooh, I want to get one of those, or I see something that I need to write down.
That's really the more important reason to
Yes.
have it. When you're looking around the table at everybody else's
and you're
things.
like, I like what she has.
What's the name of that pattern?
Yeah. And of course some extra highlighters, because as Liz knows, I'm constantly looking for highlighters. I have a permanent marker, fine tip permanent marker, fabric pen, the pen that you can write on the fabric where it disappears. And then this is actually like a little glue stick in here, just in case I need that. Acid-free, safe.
Now the
that's it. What else
purpose
do you-
behind the content of these when we first put them together is so that if we're going into a class, we have the gadgets and things we think we need to do hand finishing and basic stitching. The basic stitching we always pretty much have with us. But that glue stick she just showed is by Bowen, and it's sold at Joann's, and it is great if you're pressing down a seam or you need to attach 2 pieces together. It's a perfect fabric stick. And the things that we have in here, I just want to reference. I took 2 classes online through Shining Needle Society, and each of those classes had a list of things they recommend you keep in a finishing kit. And so based on that and my experience at retreats with Deb, this is sort of the culmination of what we found we like to keep with us.
So on your side.
On my side, I don't have a measuring tape in mine. I have my little quilting ruler, my starting gauge, the 2 and 3 inch one, and then I have my little stainless steel ruler, but then I also have a tassel maker, which is nothing more than an old room key or old credit card that I covered with some paper for Deb and I to wrap tassels, to use to wrap tassels. I have a little...
I need to get one of those. I don't have one of those. Lint roller.
Thank you. Very tiny lint roller for small lint. And then I have my glue stick, and then this is just Eileen's Fabric Fusion. It's, again, a fabric glue. And then these differ. Liquid Stitch, which most of you who sew know what Liquid Stitch is, but this one is made by the same company. But what I think the difference is, one of them is not water soluble, and the other one isn't. So if you want it to hold and you want to be able to wash it, you use the one. If you don't care, you don't have her back.
Ivan's shaking the table.
Ivan's just walked in. He's going to say goodbye to you a little bit.
You'll see him in a little bit.
Okay, buddy. So that's what I have on that side. Oh, I did forget to show you my needles. These are my finishing needles. They're the ones that are called black gold, and they go through everything.
Yeah.
So I keep those on hand.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, so in the middle, we have some of the same things, and I'll show you mine first. We always have one of these
This way.
tablets. You know, your gotta have it tablet, so you can write different things down. These are usually given to us at Salty Yarns. So you can write down the design, the fabric and count, design size, threads, embellishments. You know, you can just keep them all on here. I have a container in here where I hold extra bobbin, like where I can wind my thread around if I need it. Or I also have some extra rings and some thread drops there. We also got this cute little witch's boot one time in a jamboree that if you're doing a project that only has a few threads on it, you could use that and that'd be fun. Our container that Liz got us not long ago that we showed earlier, that's going to go to our subscriber winner. One of those in here. I don't have anything in there yet. I also have my portable light that sits on the table, and like when we're at class, and will extend and rise up, and has different brightnesses, and that is great for your if you can put it away correctly,
for your work area.
It's great, but it's also great to carry in your caddy because it compacts down to nothing almost, so that's great.
And it's battery powered.
Yes. And I have my invisible thread for some finishing work. I carry around my sticky bob. What do we call that?
Tacky bob?
Yeah, or that. Tacky bob. Just in case we have any beading or anything that I need to keep contained. In this cute little bag that Liz made me, I carry extra little...
floss bags.
Yeah, yes. Like Ziploc floss bags, right? And then I also, since I use a lot of Q-snaps, I have some cut pieces of the shelf lining paper, or the shelf liner that you get. I cut it up into smaller strips, and then sometimes I'll put that between my fabric and the extra clamp that goes on top when you're using a Q-snap, because sometimes the extra piece that you put, the clamp part, sometimes gets loose if you're stuffing a lot of fabric up under it, or things over time, over use, getting it on and off. So that helps then to keep everything nice and tight for me. So just in case I need that, I carry that there. And I always have extra glasses in here in case I need, you know, the ones that Liz was talking about that come from the Dollar Tree, just something extra just in case I need them, or if I can't find my real glasses. Some extra thread cards. And then I have this handy dandy container that opens from either the top or the bottom, and this holds all of my things, like my different needles that I use, pins for finishing, what else? I have, go ahead.
I was going to say your other goodies are mostly on the other side, except for your needles and pins.
Yeah, so this is all needles and pins on this side, and then if I flip it over, on the other side...
These are magic trick.
Yes, yes. On the other side then I have my Wonder Clips in there. I have my petite needles, it's hard to see with the light, sorry, in this silver slide case here. And then I have my tacks over here. Sometimes if you're working with stretcher bars and you need to use those tacks, that way you have those. That is it for my container. What else do you have?
I mean, given that we put them together from the same perspective, I don't have much else. I usually carry around one empty box with me. That way when we go into class, if there's skeins of thread or whatnot, I'll throw them in here just so I keep them with my stuff. I don't have to keep opening up the project bag it came in. I carry some upholstery craft thread to use for, not bias, that's not the right word.
Basting?
Basting, thank you. That word. Basting, it's nice to have on hand, and it doesn't split with a needle. It's a little heavier. Then I have my pins, my Wonder Clips. I have my light. My light is the one that I got from the class I had. It has the magnifier on the top as well.
Yes.
Then what I did in mine's put together a little different than Deb's, is we talked about this last time we were down at Salty Yarns at a class, is I put my actual stitching stuff in this little cup. I got us these little aprons for a mug one time when we went away so we could keep our stitchy stuff next to us. And so everything that I use to generally stitch, my scissors, my needles, my highlighters, I just put in here and it sits down in there.
So like if we're stitching in the room, that'll be next to her.
Yeah. And I can grab it, throw it back in the caddy, and take it over to the room. And then what happens is once we're at our place, because all the classes rotate through where you are, the designers, excuse me, rotate through class, I'll leave the rest of the caddy and I'll just take my little stitching mug back to the room. And then I'm a happy camper. And then I just had to keep it sorted inside the bin, I just had one of my other little jars with the top, and I have my Fusion pens and my, whoops, hello, here it is now. I have my Fusion pens, and then I have a Bowen fabric marker. It has chalk in it. You got 3 different colors of chalk, white, blue, and pink, and you can use it to mark. Much like her disappearing marker, you can use to mark your fabric. And then I just have a really fine point marker. And what I use those for, I found in classes, the fine point markers, oftentimes we'll have to trace around something on the back of what we stitched so that we can then cut it out and use it in our finishing. And I find a pencil sometimes just doesn't quite make it dark enough, and a ballpoint pen's a little broader, but those little micro point pens are really great for that kind of thing.
And this, I don't think you pointed out, but she carries chopsticks also, because these are awesome when you're finishing and you need to push into a corner, like if you're doing a strawberry or something that has, corners of little tiny corners, maybe if you're doing a real tiny pillow. And this is great for just stuffing in. And getting down in those corners.
This one, the points are a little bit different, but not enough to comment on. But this one actually came in a bag of polyfill that my grandmother had eons ago. So that's exactly what this was designed for. This one doesn't quite have the same narrow point on it, but it does the same thing. And then I just keep those the same place that I keep my little purple thing. And that is the technical term.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Purple thing.
Yeah.
And so basically the rest is the same. I don't know if you had hand lotion in yours, but I keep hand lotion in mine.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, help yourself. I have more. Dollar Tree.
I didn't show you the one side either. I have a couple goodies hanging over here on this one. And this cute Liz made this little Hawaiian girl for me. There she is. She was upside down. And I also have my thread, or my needle grabber. Where did it go? Oh, here it is.
I was going to say, did it magnetize it?
Yeah. And that's true. That's why she said that, is because it is on a very strong magnet, so I can take that off, and then I can just stick it back on. She also made, out of polymer clay, she made me this cute little pineapple guy. And this was a little fab that she made one year for me, and it says OC on it because that's where our retreats are for the Jamboree. It's in Ocean City.
It stands for OCD. Ocean City. Yes.
I heard that. I heard that.
Yep, that was our Ocean City.
Yes, so these are a lot of fun, and it's pretty cool when, you need something and it's like, oh yeah, I got that.
Yep.
Oh, and I also have a little flashlight that I carry with me on a little keychain.
Yeah, and I got one of those too, but I forgot to put it in here.
Yeah.
The other thing is Deb got me this magnetized holder that I actually, when I'm using my magnet clips, I'll keep this on my shirt and I'll just clip my magnet clips to it. But when we're going on the retreat, I can hang my cheaters right through there, and I have it on the side. So that's there.
Oh, that's another thing I didn't show you.
And you have.
Because
Yep, that's what I was going to remind you.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Because of the metal up here, if you have any extra scissor holders or needle minders, you can just stick them right along this bar up here, and then you can grab that if need be. So that's another reason why I like these. All right, so those are our caddies.
Yeah, this was a big bang for the buck on Gadget Corner. Actually, some of these things you've seen in one or two of our Gadget Corners, but the caddy itself, that's going to be in the description box, so you'll be able to find that. They are not inexpensive, so Joann's is a great place to go and use one of their 50% off coupons. In fact, we got ours on sale. Yeah. And I think we paid $16 each for them.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. All right.
Wow, that was job well done. And I would like to say thank you to all of the designers who keep us busy.
Yes.
To the local needlework stores who give us what we need to keep busy. And also to all the other stitchers and floss tubers out there. And most of all, thank you to you for watching us today.
Yes, and thank you for watching part 1 and part 2
yes.
of our video.
And if you're new with us today, please subscribe.
Yes, and thank you.
And we'd like to be able to share our appreciation with you, and the only way we can do that is if you subscribe.
Thank you.
And
please feel free to leave a comment. We love to read your comments.
Yes.
And if you could give us a thumbs up for the like, that'd be awesome.
And
here's Ivan.
I'll let Ivan say goodbye. Ivan, come up this way.
Nope.
Come up.
There you are.
Can you say hello?
Look over here.
Can you say hello? This is Ivan. You guys haven't seen him before. And at this point, goodbye. And remember,
enjoy needlework.
Enjoy needlework.